hers, hims, theys, and thems. Maestro's here, Beyond Light is here, and it's time to get into some early thoughts. As you can see from our director, the game looks very different from what we just had a couple of weeks ago. And honestly, the jury's still out on if this is a good or bad thing. There are a lot of mixed reviews for the game. I think mixed is a great point, and I think mixed pretty much sums up what the state of the game is right now. So where are we at? And more importantly, is Beyond Light good? Honestly, I think it is. I think Beyond Light is one of the best expansions that we've had in quite some time. Here's why. How many times have we said, I would have really liked to see this happen in the story as opposed to just reading a lore tab or reading something in my triumphs or reading something in my collections? I think they got it right. Beyond Light is probably the most well written, probably the best written piece of content that they've had in years. You know, anything post Forsaken, I think this has been the best. It jumps right in, it doesn't BS you a whole lot. Whatever it is that you want to do, you do it. Whatever it is that you want to see, as far as a story, you see it, you experience it. There's cutscenes, there's actions, there's events, there's moments where the characters are talking to each other and you're present for it. It's not just happening in the background. I think that's huge for the game. Bungie is finally taking that hint and they're showing more than they're telling, which I think is huge for the game. And I think for anybody that wants to follow along, especially with this whole darkness storyline that we're in right now, if you are one of those people who wants to see where this goes, I would definitely suggest playing Beyond Light. It's a good expansion. How about the new play space, Europa? I think it's great. I love what they did with it. It really does feel like Destiny for the next generation. It's dynamic. Things change. The weather effects are awesome. The blizzard, awesome. All of these things are great. It has its own look to it, and it looks really good. I can tell there were some things that were already done because they wanted to have this in the game prior, but I love what they were able to do and how they were able to bring it into, the next generation, not just for PC, but for the other consoles. I have not gotten a chance to see footage of how this looks on stuff like Series X or PS5 just yet, but I'm, confident that it looks great. Now, as far as playing on Europa, as you're going to go through, expect to spend a lot of time on your Sparrow. I understand why they did this, though. They wanted us to realize the scale of this new destination, this new play space, how much stuff there was to do, how much space, how much area there is to explore. And trust me, there is a lot. For those of you who had issues with the Dreaming City, you may have an issue with Europa. And I don't mean that as to say it's bad, but we only have 2 fast travel points. I would have liked to see another one, especially for us who play a lot in the north, because this area right here, Reese Reborn, we're going to spend a lot of time here. Not just within the main story, but in the post-campaign as well. So get comfortable with that. You're going to spend a lot of time in the area. I would have loved to see another fast travel point somewhere here in the north. I understand why they didn't. And as far as the game itself, the game does play well. There are bugs, there are glitches. We know of a lot. We'll talk about those a little bit later because there's some heavy stuff. But as far as the game, it feels like a more stable experience overall, minus the hiccups we had on launch day with people not being able to get in, having queue issues, all of that. It feels like a much more stable experience. It feels smoother. The updates that they did to the UI were huge. Us having a dark character screen, I think not only for story reasons and us, embracing stasis and the subclass and the new element, I think us just having these options, that we're not blinded. I think there's been a lot of quality of life changes that have been made with Beyond Light, and I appreciate all of them. It looks good. It sounds good. The new destination looks and sounds good. I want to give a shout out to the sound team. They were working with a lot of limited availability and limited options. So what they were able to create with that, absolutely magnificent. And yes, that includes the meme of the breast pump stasis sounds. Trust me, when you're in game, it may remind you, but you're just like, damn, this sounds good. You sound powerful. You sound like you're embracing darkness. And darkness is the big theme. It's not just the thing in the story, but this is a much darker story than we're used to. And I love that it's handled well. It's handled sincerely. It's treated seriously. And there's a lot of good fleshing out of characters that happen within the expansion. There's a lot of stuff with Ghost, who I think becomes more of a character as opposed to just a utility, as opposed to just a support. He really goes through a lot, and you start to see his vulnerability both, figuratively and literally as we go throughout the story. There's stuff with the Drifter. There's stuff with Eric's Moore. There's a lot of stuff with the Exo Stranger. The way they have brought her back in and kind of made her this enigma that you want to just know more and more about as time goes on. It's great, and you get to see more of the Exo Stranger. It's not just, hey, go read this lore tab, or go look at this thing in your triumphs, or look at this thing in your collections. You get to experience what it's like dealing with the Exo Stranger. Maybe not necessarily in terms of combat, but just knowing who she is, where she's come from, what she's done, what she's had to do. Amazing. This has been the best approach to the story of Destiny that they've had in quite some time. So what about the gameplay itself? I think the gameplay is a strong suit. Elephant in the room. Weapons and gear that have been sunset. The biggest issue that I think Beyond Light has is people may not feel it's worth it. It may not be a good value to them. I completely understand this. If you look straight up just at the numbers, we lost a lot more than we gained. It's reflected even inside of the main menu. Like if you look at the director, there's a lot of stuff missing. We're missing planets. What we got in comparison to what we lost doesn't add up. It's not a 1-to-1. I think we got a lot of great new stuff. I think the game plays well. I think it plays a lot more stable than beforehand, but a lot of that stuff is still missed. I think if we had gotten at least another year, maybe with the Shadowkeep stuff, hell, even another season, 2 seasons at level cap, I think that would have been great. The main reason I have for saying that is because it's value. When you think of it, Forsaken and Shadowkeep are still paid content. The content you get, the gear, the loot that you acquire that isn't raid gear or an exotic, is not relevant in PvE and is not relevant inside of the sandbox for anything other than quick play. I don't think that's a good call, especially because we still have newer players coming. Especially with the Beyond Light expansion, the new light has been completely overhauled, and there is more of a tutorial. The game actually shows you things, which I think is great for the new players. So what about the guns themselves? Well, the new guns that we have play really well. As you can see here, I'm rocking No Time to Explain. Master working this and using this has become my favorite exotic out of the expansion. I know there's, exotic grip and all that. Salvation's grip is cool. I think this offers a lot of utility. I think the fact that it utilizes stasis in a creative way, I think anything utilizing stasis has been great. But this right here, this has been my workhorse. It's a primary, but it looks and feels like an exotic, and it performs like an exotic. It sets itself apart, and it's great in both sandboxes, PvE and PvP. Once you masterwork it and you get the catalyst, the amount of damage you're doing with this thing for a primary it's incredible. Inside of PvE, you're going to use this for ad clear. You're going to use this to put damage onto majors. You're going to use it for pretty much everything. It's kind of like a Swiss Army knife. There are going to be weapons that do things better. Obviously special weapons are good. We got a lot of new shotguns in this expansion too. We got a new Void shotgun. We got a new Arc shotgun that I personally love, especially with this perk Thresh. We got a lot of new perks that are centered around ability usage, where you get bonuses to weapon stats if your abilities are charged, or you get kills with weapons and they charge your super. Things like that. I think we're moving into kind of that MMO feel as opposed to a shooter feel where we get to use more of our abilities to do damage and to take fights and all that. So I really like what they've done there. But in PvP, No Time to Explain also shines. It's a high impact pulse, which, as y'all know, just recently got buffed. This thing is a laser. You're going to see it a lot. So I would definitely say go through the main story, because despite it being a pre-order bonus and with the deluxe editions or the upgraded editions of the game, most notably the one that comes with the season, get it. If you're somebody who's going to get Beyond Light, I suggest you get this if you want to play with this exotic, because it is going to be added to the loot pool afterwards, most likely as a world drop. But if you're somebody who wants to play with stuff and get in while the getting's still good, I highly recommend it. This thing is powerful. If you love pulse rifles, it's going to be right up your alley. Even if you don't like pulse rifles, try it out. Seriously, it's that good. It may make you a believer. Now, what about everything else? Well, we've got some other exotics that have shown up that have performed better in Beyond Light due to some bug fixes, due to some changes, due to exotic perks actually triggering. I think overall the game is in a better spot in terms of having stable gameplay, but with that stable gameplay, with that better spot, we know there's glitches. There's a lot of glitches. There's a lot of bugs. There are a lot of things that have been disabled due to bugs. Remember how Witherhoard used to straight up delete bosses because the game couldn't register its damage output correctly? There's another damage bug with Witherhoard, and at the time of this video, it's currently disabled. But there's also huge bugs with stasis. We know stasis is strong in PvP. Everybody's talking about it. It's overtuned. It's busted. Stasis is also broken. As fun as it is to play with, as creative as it is, I love the sound of it. I love the feeling of it. It fulfills that power fantasy. But y'all, I gotta be honest, this shit's broken. And I don't mean just in the overpower sense, I mean it's literally broken. There's a glitch with stasis where you can once again overwhelm how the game deals damage and straight up delete bosses. I'm talking 100-0. Raid bosses, Gambit, everything, strikes, you name it. If it gets hit, if you do the combo right, it gets deleted. But this is also a combo if you think of damage phases and how people take them, and there's just a bunch of abilities and supers getting thrown around. It's also very easy to do this by accident. Now, what does that mean for the future content we have? The team is aware of it. They are working on a fix for that bug, and they definitely need to because they are still planning to launch the raid. They're still planning to launch Deepstone Crypt this Saturday. I think the issue is that while nothing has been confirmed, I'm pretty sure, I'm 90% sure Stasis is going to have a place in the raid. It has been the selling point for this expansion. It's been the selling point for the game in this new state. I'm pretty sure Stasis is going to show up. It was designed, there were more than a couple of encounters designed in mind, if not the entire raid itself. So seeing them fix this is going to be huge. I don't want this to come out in a bug state. I don't want this to be something where, okay, well, if anybody's using this, then your world's first potentially could be invalidated. But we all know how people are. If it's in the game, they'll use it. So I'm going to be on the lookout for some patch notes, a hot fix. Definitely going to be paying attention to see what comes out of the TWAB this week. So that gets updated. Trust me, I'll definitely share that information with you all. I'm looking forward to that. But other than that, the game does play well. I can say that. How do we feel about the value? Well, we got a couple new toys to play with. While you don't get no time to explain until after the main story, we've also got stuff in the season pass. We've got Duality, which is a new exotic shotgun that's very fun to use. It's basically Ash from Overwatch in shotgun form. If you hip fire it, it's a regular pellet shotgun. If you go ahead and shoot it while aiming down sights, it turns into a slug shotgun, and it's actually pretty monstrous. Now, the thing is, this perk that it has on Black Wings, once you get a hip fire kill, you get a stacking damage buff and a reload speed buff. Problem is, this buff goes away when you reload. Now, because this is the seasonal exotic, this is also the thing that you'll be getting the season pass booster for when it comes to finishing the catalyst and getting the catalyst. So that's another thing to look out for. You get it from rank 1 from the paid pass, and you get it at rank 35 on the free track. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. But overall, we've got a lot of new stuff to play with. I love what they've done with Lost Sectors, specifically Legend Lost Sectors. You can go through these and have a chance to get some of the new exotics, especially some of the new exotic gear that we have. There's the helmet. There's, Mask of Bacchus. There's Necrotic Grasp. There's Icewall Mantle for Titans. There's a lot of new gear to play with. The thing is, right now, I don't know of any other drop sources other than finishing a Legend Lost Sector solo. I like that we have options. I like that we know for a fact there is a way to obtain this exotic in the game. I don't necessarily know if this is what I meant or what I wanted when I said, hey, it'd be great if we had, more options for solo players. I think it's definitely doable. I think it's just tough right now because the game just came out. The expansion just came out, so a lot of people are still under-leveled. But I think, maybe in a week's time, in a couple days, we're going to see a lot more people playing with them because these are going to be available. Now, the leveling, I think, has been tuned slightly. Leveling, I have said time and time again, I don't think leveling is content, but I do think there have been big strides in terms of what do we do to level. You can hang out in any playlist potentially all day and still get powerful rewards from that. I think that's a great change. I think that does play more into the play your way philosophy. I don't think everything else, as far as the play your way in terms of the weapons and the sunsetting and all that, does. But as far as being able to choose what activities you want to do and still get rewards for it, I think that's a huge change. I love seeing more of that. As far as stasis itself, despite it being broken, I think it's good. It fits the power level, it fits the power fantasy, it feels good to use. Doesn't necessarily feel good to play against, especially in PvP, but we can have a whole discussion on stasis and PvP later. Just know there's going to be a lot of four-letter words involved in that discussion. Gear has been good. Not all of it is great. Again, we lost a lot more than we gained, but the gear does feel good. There are things that let you feel powerful. But there are also things that have been taken out. Legacy Nightfalls are no longer a thing. I think that's a big issue, but also a lot of stuff that was in Legacy Nightfalls was gear that's been sunset anyway. I don't know if these will be coming back with some of the stuff that we have on the remaining destinations, but as of right now, they just aren't a thing. With activities being removed, there's been a lot of bugs with activities too, not just with the stuff that players do in terms of abilities and weapons. Wither Horde got disabled again. There's been a lot of stuff where if you're on Europa, I've noticed myself falling through terrain. There's a lot of funky stuff going on, especially with melee registration. I can look past bugs and glitches so long as the game is still fun. And honestly, it's still fun. There have been changes to all the core activities. We got new strikes, technically an old strike if you were someone who played D1. We got a new version of the Omnigul strike called the Disgraced. I think it's pretty cool. She is a bit of a damage sponge, I will say that. But the activity itself is pretty dope. Gambit changes. Gambit is now all one round. It plays a lot closer to Gambit Prime, but there's no Prime armor set. There's no Prime armor bonuses. There's no Prime. I understand why they made the changes. Gambit wasn't really played a lot. The people who had to play Gambit did so either for their rewards or their quest steps, and then they dipped. So they pretty much just made it less painful to play your matches, which I completely get. I understand that. If you ask people who like Gambit, they say it's felt like they took the worst parts of both modes and put them together, and I completely understand that. For me, I'm probably still going to be in the camp of playing as little Gambit as possible, just really to do my powerfuls and my pinnacles, get my rewards, maybe if there's a quest involved. The only thing left that I think I have to do involving Gambit is getting my snakeskin rep for a Dord. A Dord is the new sniper that we have that's the ritual weapon, and currently the only ritual weapon. I understand that people think we got gypped because we were used to having, 2 or 3 rituals in a season, and now we only have one that you can choose to get either through Strikes, Gambit, or the Crucible. I think whichever one you pick, there is still a bit of a grind, but you don't have to do as much work to get the ornament for that weapon after the fact, which I think is good. And there's background progress. You can progress steps even if that step hasn't been reached yet. For example, while I was doing my, powerfuls and pinnacles and really getting a feel and seeing what PvP is like, once I got to the point where I had a Dord, I chose the strike grind to get mine, and I wanted to get the ornament. Guardians defeated, that step was already done because I'd gotten kills in Crucible prior. Only thing I had to do was get sniper rifle kills and precision kills with snipers. That was it. Because I'm not personally a sniper player, it took me a while. It took me about a day and a half to get the ornament. People who are better snipers than me, better shots than me, you'll get this in much less time. And some people may choose to do Crucible in general just to go ahead and get their adored. You can get it however you want. Even the stuff for Gambit, for the ornament, isn't that bad. Where it's just get kills with final blows, bank some motes, and, get rapid multi-kills. You can do all of that stuff relatively easily. The only thing is, it's probably going to take you a couple games because Gambit itself is so short now, but I like that it is shorter. Maybe we'll see some more tuning in the future. I'm not sure. There's a lot of stuff to sort through. I still kind of struggle with being motivated to play Gambit for anything other than rewards, so I'm definitely going to try and play as little as possible. So, what about the rest of the gameplay loop? Well, the Season of the Hunt stuff just came out today. I'm excited to dive more into that and see more of what our seasonal gameplay is going to look like. It's day one. I already know there's stuff in terms of leveling up your gear, getting lures, getting things so you can go hunt the actual targets and farm for gear. So I'll have stuff on that coming later after I get some time to play with it. I don't want to be too knee-jerk about it. I want to actually dive in and kind of, see how things are going before we jump right into it. But I think this will be a pretty good season. And I want all of these seasons to be good. I don't want Destiny to be hard to love. I don't want Destiny to be hard to care about. I just want Destiny, and I want it to be good. I want it to be as good as it can possibly be. I think they're on the way to doing that. There is still certainly stuff to hammer out. I am cutting them a fair bit of slack. One, because I know how hard game development is, and two, because at the time of this, we're still very much within a global pandemic. So, if you want to see what Beyond Light is like, if you want new Destiny, if you want more Destiny, and you like Destiny, this is the expansion for you. If you're still on the fence, I would say it's fine to be on the fence. Maybe wait for a sale if you want to get this. I get it's not the best value for people, but for somebody who wants to jump right in and get in while the getting's good, I say go for it. I would advise you, however, once again, pick up the seasonal edition. If you're not big on collectibles and all the other stuff and having a whole year paid off in advance, go for the season edition. Nothing wrong with that. You still get no time to explain once you finish a story, and you definitely want no time to explain. Trust me. Really good weapon. So that is it for me. Those are my first thoughts on Beyond Light. I'm excited to see how the rest of season 12 progresses. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a good one, and we will see you in the next one. Peace out and stay safe.